Okay. Hey, welcome back to Maybe Actually Museums Are For Me. I'm Alex, host of the podcast. Thanks for joining me. This week, I'm not even going to pretend that there's pleasantries or an intro. Melissa's on mic. We're talking about the art market. Essentially, we've been kind of, at work recently, at after hours events. Like last night, we had an opening at the museum for a really great still life photographer, JP Terlizzi, and we're all kind of standing around like at the end of the night, and a notification popped up on my phone that kind of was really jarring and a trend in recent headlines that I've been getting a lot of. But essentially, I turned and showed Melissa the phone, and it was reported that a Frida Kahlo portrait sold for $55 million, setting an auction record for her work, which kind of jogged an instant kind of recognition that I've seen so many headlines recently talking about, the art auction world and, different reporting about, obviously how the market's been depressed. And when I say that, I kind of chuckle a little bit because we're talking about millions and millions of dollars that I don't think I will ever see a penny of. But essentially like how the market's been depressed and there's been a lot of lulls, and it seems like we've kind of hit this weird little wave of huge sales. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of those recent headlines in the last week, and then also maybe some of the reasons for that, because I've also been getting some headlines about, why this may be. Anyway, Melissa, how are you? Are you settled back from your time in the States away from London?
Yeah, I've reacclimated myself.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, but you showed me quite a few headlines throughout the week that had to do with...
They just kept coming.
And we've talked about the art market in the past on previous episodes when we've done our art news kind of roundups, but it's always like there's one big headline from the past month that will pop up and we'll discuss it. This time it was just very consistent over not a very long period of time. A lot of big moves happening in the art market world.
Yeah, Sotheby's, Christie's, they've been having a lot of record sales. The one that, outside of the Frida Kahlo that jumps out at me was actually a work that made huge waves. It was a Gustav Klimt work. It's the second most expensive painting ever sold, which is jarring because the most expensive painting ever sold is the Leonardo da Vinci's alleged Salvator Mundi, which sold back many, probably almost a decade ago now, for well over $400 million. So still almost halfway there, but it's just, when I think of Gustav Klimt, like I love his work, very interested in it, deeply like beautiful. Not what I thought would be the second most
and it's
expensive painting ever.
I feel like he's not a name you often hear in the art market of like things going up for auction. Like when you said his name, I kind of did a double take. I was like, what, Klimt went up for sale at Sotheby's? Because it's normally you hear a lot of Rothko, you hear Picasso, you hear kind of those names, and so it was a little bit shocking. Yeah,
definitely. And it was like I think 19 minutes of bidding, and like when it broke the 200 million mark, like the room like erupted in cheers, which I think like
it's like a sporting event.
Kind of. It's like you think of these auctions, and granted I've never been to an auction, but like like I think of these auctions as very very like seldom, very like respectful, like
and a little bit like the fact
more
that like reserved.
A ruckus could be like spurred by like
people get so excited
but
over it.
Interestingly though, that was not the only piece that sold that day. So another interesting work, we'll call it a ready-made, was also for sale and sold for a whopping $12.1 million. Do you know what that work is, Melissa?
I don't believe I do, no.
It's a golden toilet.
Oh, you mentioned that. You didn't tell me the price. You just told me a golden toilet sold. Yeah.
And so it was by this artist, this conceptual artist named Maurizio Catalan. I might be saying that wrong, but it's a functional sculpture, they're calling it.
Oh,
so it's a working golden toilet.
You could plug it in, or you could set it up in your house.
Yeah, it was apparently sold for the price of gold. So essentially, like
Okay,
the amount
yeah.
of gold that went into it is about what it sold for.
Okay.
And when it was reported, this is what I find the most humorous. When it was reported that it sold, the buyer, because sometimes the buyers are hidden, they're, you know, kept private, whatever. In this case, it was noted that the buyer was a famous American brand. Do you want to guess the American brand that purchased this toilet?
No, I don't even want to like try to guess. Just tell me.
Ripley's Believe It or Not. That got reported like the next day. Got reported like today, I think.
So is it going to be like in a show or on display? Or?
Probably on display at like their Las Vegas location or something.
Okay.
But yeah, it is just really, really fascinating. I mean, like I was kind of saying, it's been really slow within the art market. There's been a lot of reporting that it's just kind of, it's fizzling. You know, and I think this definitely similar to like the banana, like people are talking about how like the pairing of these two works selling at one time is an interesting conversation in itself, where it's like you have this high art, beautiful, like, you know, the pinnacle of what you consider, you know, fine art selling alongside a golden toilet, which I think is very reminiscent to the, obviously, like the banana and, you know, what have you. But
it shows the breadth of the art world, and, you know.
Yeah.
So
it like, and this kind of gets into something that I think you're going to talk a little bit more about, but you know, one of the things is like, I think if I have the statistic correctly, the art market in, you know, the last year has contracted 12%, from like overall sales. And essentially like this has like kind of really revived a really floundering market. I think in total, not even including these two works, I think $706 million worth of art were sold at that auction. That's Sotheby's auction. And it was the, like, I think the highest total ever achieved at auction in a single night, which is kind of insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Do you want to talk a little bit about, you know, the lull in the market and the kind of the trend that's kind of shaping a little bit of this revival?
I don't know if I can speak to the lull or the reason of the lull, but fairly recently, a lot of art news periodicals, Hyperallergic, Art Basel, have conducted surveys trying to understand the art market a little bit more and what's happening. And it's come to the attention that there's this younger generation of art collectors really reviving it. It's Gen Z, it's millennial collectors, specifically women collectors, are outbidding male collectors, and they're the ones kind of making these big moves and big purchases. And something I found really interesting is that these young women collectors are more likely than their male counterparts to purchase art by an artist that they know little to nothing about, kind of like an unknown name. And every article, when they said that, also said, like, right after, even though women are typically more like risk adverse, like statistically speaking, they are willing to, you know, take a chance on.
Yeah, I think and maybe it's like a tad stereotypical, but I think like women do have better taste than men. I don't think that's like inappropriate to say. And so like I get that in a sense where it's like, yeah, you're buying what you like. And I think that's what art is supposed to be.
Well, that's also, I think, one of the articles noticed there's this new trend with buying art where it's not so much more about possession, it's more about projection, in terms of, it's not so much about the prestige of owning like a well-known artwork anymore. It's more about buying art that showcases your personal taste or your personal beliefs or your like style or what you like or what you believe. So buying art that is more of a reflection of your personality as opposed to maybe your bank account. Yeah. Which I think is great. I think
it's fantastic.
That's what art should be. You should just buy what you like or buy something that speaks to you.
Yeah.
So I love that seems to be the trend that is becoming more mainstream within the art market world.
Yeah, I think it's a long-standing sin, and it's not something new, but art from a collecting standpoint is often simply an asset for people, and that's a sad reality. I think that's why a lot of really famous, really beloved artworks just kind of end up in these, I've talked about them before, but like free ports in like Geneva, Switzerland, where like they're kind of like stuck in quote unquote transit so that they can't be taxed, and it's really just like write-offs, and like, it's a shame, but and I often talked about like what is the the difference between like a museum who has tens of thousands of works, not showing them, and like what's the difference between them and a collector who stashes their work away to never be seen. And I think that there's obviously always exceptions to those rules, and there's ethical debates and battles about what have you, but I think at the core of it, it's about redefining what the collection should and can be. And I think the positive trend that you're talking to, and that we're seeing kind of reported, is like this division between art as asset and art as art. And I really do love the note of like, yeah, we're buying, like people are just buying what they want to buy.
Yeah.
The other thing that you noted that I thought was really interesting is the Gen Z aspect of it, in the sense where it's like we're both of this generation, and obviously working in museums, we have events like Art on Tap, which is like a contemporary art auction here. Like I work with artists almost every week, where I'm going to their studios and I'm watching them work, and like like I'm very invested in what they're doing. And like there's artists that have been on view at MAM, and artists that I've worked with where I've really fallen in love with their work, and like I would love to acquire some of it. And ultimately, even still, like I couldn't even fathom purchasing something that's $500, let alone $500,000.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I found kind of like fascinating is that there's kind of this conversation, and I think it stems around like Gen Z buyers, if you will, about the direct relationship with artists. And it's something that I'm experiencing firsthand, obviously, like working with a lot of artists. And it's like, whether it's working with artists like Tom Nussbaum, who's on view now at the museum, and like I've worked really closely with for a lot of content, or like, artists like Renelle White Buffalo, who's an indigenous artist. She's Lakota and works out of Jersey City, who I am like infatuated with her style and her practice. And, it's like building these relationships and, kind of establishing this direct to consumer relationship with who's buying the art. And like it reminds me of like that lost generation era of like the 1920s, where it's like you have all of these artists and writers and and friends within the scene who have direct relationships with people. I mean, how many times did Van Gogh or Picasso or Sargent just give their work away to friends? Like I think obviously galleries have always been important, but I think for young collectors, probably working with young artists who are struggling to find representation, I think direct point of sale is really important. And I think it's kind of it pulls down the curtain on whether or not it is being purchased as an asset rather than something that they truly love.
Yeah. And I don't know necessarily why Gen Z is becoming the new powerhouse.
Yeah, where are you finding the money? Like, let me know.
I
let me know.
I don't know. The article didn't really get into it. It more went into like how they're influencing the art market in terms of like the types of things they're buying, where they are far more diverse in the type of art that they are buying. There's this call for digital art, or not ready-made art, but more like alternative types of art, like fashion or exclusive or
like wearable art
and like time limited designs
Yeah,
or
yeah.
patterns or things like that.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I'm kind of to your point of what you're talking about. We have a mutual friend actually. She used to work at the museum, but Allie.
Yeah.
But she worked in the education department. I love her art. She's really, really talented. And the other day she posted on her like art account that she had made like mittens, like ski gloves for a friend that like she painted directly on and like sealed, and like I was like, how much for these? And she's like, we could do a trade. Make me like a profile and like we'll do a trade.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's like to me, like it's kind of like tattoos in a way. It's like you want to wear your art. You want to, bear it in a way that like is visible. And, with something like that, it's like, yeah, I could like put those in like a glass box, but like I want to wear those gloves on the mountain, and like they're a conversation piece.
Well,
like
that goes back to using art as a way to like show your personality.
Yeah.
Which it's much easier if you're doing it via fashion or like you said, tattoos or something that you can physically take with you and show the world, and that's kind of the world's first impression of you.
Yeah.
Is how you're dressed or
how you adorn yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. I mean, not to kind of like close this like so quickly, but I think it's important to kind of finally talk about, and not that everything has to be a plug for the museum, but like we do have a contemporary art auction coming up at MAM on December 12th. It's called Art on Tap. You might also know it as Art Uncorked. It's the same event, different name. But rebranded a little bit. But essentially, yeah, every winter we do a contemporary art auction here at the museum. And essentially it gives you the opportunity to directly meet contemporary artists, some, relatively big names in the contemporary art world, some, up and coming local emerging artists, and all around the work is really, really great. It's juried by, a group of collectors and trustees and, museum members who essentially kind of have their own collections, and they kind of curate the show in a way, or curate the auction. And it's really, really great stuff. And I think if you, have some time, and even if you're not bidding, just want to like hang out, it's a really cool opportunity to directly come face to face and build these direct relationships.
And it is a way to kind of just learn more about the local art scene. A lot of the artists that I've grown to love while working at MAM, I saw their work in this auction.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like JP
Terlizzi. Yeah.
He has been in this show. He's donated a piece to this auction every year, like since I've been here. So I knew his work, and I loved his work before his show ever came to MAM, to the galleries.
Yeah.
I would love to own work by him. We'll see if I can afford the bidding. But
yeah, no, it's great. I mean, we talked about, even last year, we joked about Renelle White Buffalo, who I spoke about earlier. It was a pair of paintings that could be sold together, could be sold separately, what have you. And we kind of joked about, we were like, how much, like, what if we both bought one?
What if we like went in together and then we split them?
We split them
like,
up.
You got one and I got one.
Yeah, but obviously, certainly that didn't happen.
That didn't happen. No.
There's also, before Luke, we close, I do want to talk about one last thing that I think we've talked about on the show before, but there's also an emergence of artists trying to cater to the younger art market and find a way to make collecting more accessible. I think about, again, I feel like Renelle's getting a lot of coverage today, but Renelle posted one time she was doing these small little pieces that, she does, it's mostly painting, but it's a mixed media painting. She includes
like fiber art stuff.
And essentially she made these smaller handheld sort of pieces that, could be framed, could be what have you, however you want to display it is fine, but they were like $100 a piece, or even possibly less. And they were just tiny little kind of like fragments of work, and they're gorgeous and beautiful. And, something that like gives you a chance to like acquire something. And I think of also, art, more famous artists like Mickaleen Thomas. She did not so recently anymore, but she did these a print series where she was taking prints and then adding like actual like layers to it and painting or just like providing more of a creative touch to it than just printing something out, numbering it, and selling it.
Mm-hmm.
And she treated them as if they were true artworks of hers and labeled them as such, and essentially sold them for no more than like $1,000. And it's like, if you are fresh into the scene and you have the disposable income to make purchases like this, you know, I think that if it is becoming more accessible, that is a trend in the positive direction. I still don't know if I can afford to get into it. The only painting that I've really bought that is like a real piece of art, I bought again like from like a street fair in Asbury Park. I bought from like an open studio, Bang & Lesin, good people. They have a studio in the South of France also. But yeah, I bought it for, you know, a great price. And when I checked on Artly, is it Artly? Is that the site that like, yeah, I checked on Artly and they were selling it for like 200 or 300 euros. And I was like, oh, I got a good deal on this. Yeah. And now I've technically, not to go back to like art as asset, because I did not buy it as such, but it was like a nice surprise to be like, oh, this is technically worth more. Yeah. And now that it's framed, it's worth even more. Yeah. But like, you know, it's not an outrageous amount of money, but like, you know, it's not something I'll ever sell, but like, it is just nice to know what it's worth. And it feels like it's important, and it's just a special thing. And it's about the relationships that you're building with the artists.
Yeah. I have something similar where one of the very first shows that was on at MAM when I started here was with Woolpunk. She did a banner in Lower Art Stairway, and she was selling a print of like her work or like a section of that banner in the shop. Yeah. And it was very nice, like mounted like print. And I was like, I'm going to buy it. Yeah. And I did, because it wasn't an outrageous amount of money and I could afford it. And I was like, I really appreciate her art. I love what her art stands for and like her message. And I got to hear her like talk at the opening, and I was like, I want to own a piece of artwork by her, so I'm going to. And I still have it, and it's at my house, and I got to get it framed, but it's all ready to go. I bought
Alyssa from the shop too, because we do sell, like, artists do sell things in the shop, and there are like functional wares, like we talked about, we joked about the toilet being a functional sculpture, but like there are functional like pieces.
We have like ceramic pieces.
Yeah, and so like I bought Alyssa a ceramic like key dish from an indigenous artist that has a few works on sale in the museum. And she loves it. It's great. And it was like, that's like the best thing to be like, yes, this is functional. Yes, you can use this as a key dish, but like this was made by an artist, and like it is handmade, and it is like, it's special.
It's not mass produced, or it's not, you know, from a factory. It feels a little bit more intentional.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Melissa, I enjoyed this conversation.
Yes.
For our audience. Yeah. Like we said, Art on Tap coming on December 12th. Tickets are still on sale. It's a great chance to buy some art. This wasn't meant to be an advertisement of an episode, but I guess it did kind of work in that way.
We'll just tag it on at the end.
But this has been Maybe Actually Museums Are For Me. Thanks so much for stopping by, listening to us ramble for about 20 minutes, give or take. And the museum is open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You can check us out. You can check us out online or in person. We got a lot going on. We got some great shows on view until January, and then we have some new shows coming. We got a contemporary art show. We got a landscape show. We got some, we just put on in view J.P. Terlizzi's new photography show. There's a lot to look forward to. Alas, this has been Maybe Actually Museums Are For Me. Thanks for sticking around to the end of this episode. Bye.
Bye.